Let's talk about food at a wedding. Good. So we're going to talk about food at a wedding and what food you can have on your wedding day. This really depends on what kind of wedding you're having. I'm going to give you the food that we deliver at one of our wedding venues on a wedding day and pick out the different points and tell you how you could change those if you were looking to do a different style wedding. The first thing that you have to think about is breakfast. And I mean like literal breakfast, like I just woke up and I need to eat something breakfast, not wedding breakfast, which we'll come back to. I think it's quite important to think this through because it's very possible that from the point that you get ready to the point that you're walking down the aisle, if you don't prepare something, you're not eating. Obviously, I'm saying this very lightly, but it is actually a thing. A lot of people get very nervous on the morning of their wedding day and, they're too nervous to eat. And by the time they walk down the aisle, it's like, close to fainting point because they haven't eaten. The next thing that would come up at a wedding would be the canapes. After you have had the ceremony, traditionally you would then have, a glass of fizz, or sometimes it's Pim, sometimes it's Prosecco, sometimes it's, orange juice and champagne mixed together that has a really cool word and it's just totally escaped me. Bucks Fizz. That would be complemented with what we call either canapes or sliders. Canapes are like little bite things. They walk around generally with a tray and they'll come out with various different ones and you can, pick. And if you're anything like us, you normally stand in a place close to where they come out, so you get first dibs. Then sliders are a more popular thing that's been happening more recently, where you'll have like the cute mini burgers or the cute mini hot dogs with like, fish and chips as well, which is normally like a scampi, battered scampi on like a little cone of chips. The slightly bigger things, you would have less of them go out, but it's a little bit more substantial. Normally we would say pick 3 different kinds of sliders or pick 5 different kinds of canapes. There would be enough for your guests to have like one each, basically. The next thing that generally people then would go to would be the 3-course meal. 3-course meal is something that you would design with your venue. Some people have 2 courses, they have a starter and a main, and then they cut up their cake for dessert. Pick what you want to eat on your wedding day and, your guests will love it. Moving on, after the 3-course meal, you may want to have something called petit fours, which is like little chocolate, tasty dessert type things that you can have with the tea, sometimes in a separate room. And that's something that you can either have like set out on the table or someone can bring it around. That's a sort of cute little extra that you can have. The next thing that you would then look to be having would be something for the evening. Although most of your guests will probably be quite full come around 6 o'clock, there is a point around about sort of 8, 9 o'clock where everyone just gets hungry again. And if they haven't gotten hungry, then any additional evening guests would probably be expecting to have some evening food. Okay, let's take into consideration that you probably will lose some of the day guests because they will go home after the meal because they'll have other commitments. Some of them may be elderly, some of them may be young and just want to go home, like whatever. You'll lose some of the day guests. Then with some of the evening guests, they'll have eaten really well before they came, so they won't really want to have like another big meal on top of that. And then some of the day guests just won't really be hungry, so they might pick at things, but they'll not really be into eating, a full burger and chips, etc. So really you're looking to cater for about 70% of the evening guests. The evening food could be a really nice buffet with a selection of meats, a selection of sandwiches, selections of cheeses, etc. You could then also go for something like pizzas, hot dogs, pulled pork baps, paella I've seen, really there's so many different options for evening food. Good, so variations. Obviously, if you are having a wedding and you are Greek or you're Indian, you're going to have particular food that you would like to have at your wedding. I can't comment on that. It's something I'd love to hear more about. So if that is something you are organizing for your wedding, then absolutely get in contact with me, and tell me how it is you're having your wedding with those traditions and those different types of food, etc. But what I can comment on in terms of variations is, for example, if someone has decided instead of having a 3-course meal, they want to have an afternoon tea wedding. I saw a couple who did a bake-off table for the desserts. They assigned certain guests the task of bringing, a cake, and then whatever dessert you were having, you then had to leave a rating. And then there was someone actually won a prize at the end of the evening, which I thought was really good fun. I think the most important thing is to feed your guests. There's nothing worse than being in the middle of nowhere and being hungry and having just eaten the meal and it wasn't substantial, and you know you're drinking and you're kind of getting to about 8-9 o'clock and you're trying to work out where the nearest McDonald's is. So don't have that be the memory of your wedding. Like, please feed your guests and feed them well. Choose a smile, always.